Welcome back to With the First Pick. So we talked the Trent McDuffie trade in the first block. Now we're going to talk about some intriguing players and their NFL comps. And Rand, you know that I'm historically bad at this, but I'm okay with that. Everybody can't be great at everything. And if you're, before we get going here, if you're watching us on the old YouTubes, drop a comment. Let us know who you think the most underrated players in this draft class that no one else is talking about, but that you like. And then as we get through this thing, you can grade my comps versus Rand. I suspect I will win, but let's get to it. First things first. Rand, we are starting with your guy. And just to be clear, Rand has not seen my comp, so he's going to be surprised like you in real time, and I suspect there'll be a lot of smiles. But first, let's get to Rand's first guy. Texas linebacker Anthony Hill Jr., insane athlete. Rand, what do you got?
Yeah, so I was just looking at him and just even going through my reports, and the first person that jumped off the tape to me was Kenneth Murray Jr., a.k.a. K9. Their body structures are the same. Their play styles are the same. And just for comparison's sake, right, if you look at their measurables, Kenneth Murray, when he came out, he was 6'2", 241, with 32 and 3/4 arm, a 4.5, 240, and a 38 vert. The comparison side, Anthony Hill Jr., 6'2", 238, 32 and 3/8 arm, a 4.5, 140, and a 37-inch vertical. So not only are their play styles the same, but their size, their measurable matches up almost identical as well. So that was my first comp.
Is Anthony Hill a slightly better athlete? Because Murray was a really good athlete as well. Maybe I'm not remembering how good he was at Oklahoma, but maybe obscured by the fact that his NFL career didn't quite mirror what we were expecting. Who's the best athlete in your mind?
I think Anthony Hill Jr. is a little better athlete in space. But I think they're both, really good athletes, especially for that linebacker position and the weight that they carry, that they're still able to move around. But I think if you're looking at them in terms of just playing in space, being able to change direction, you got to give the nod to the young fella, Anthony Hill.
Murray, a first-round pick. Is Anthony Hill Jr. going to be a first-round pick?
I think he'll be in that kind of same range. I believe K9 was a late 20 pick, somewhere in there, possibly. I think there could be some noise for Anthony Hill in there, but I think he'll definitely go within the top 40-ish, top 50.
Yeah, and this off-ball linebacker class is also pretty deep, and we've talked about it, and we will continue to talk about it. All right, you didn't ask me, but I'll give you a grade. That's an A. That's a really good. That's a good start. Let's see if I can match it. And look, I'm not taking the layup. I'm taking the half-court shot to begin the game because I'm going with D'Angelo Pons, who measured in at 5'8.5" and 182. And there are not a lot of dudes that are first or second or even third-round picks that look like that. So my comp for D'Angelo Pons, who has not run yet, but every person you talk to, he's always been the fastest person on that team going back to Pee Wee ball, and he's going to run fast here. It's a mix, because I got to hedge my bets here. It's a mix of on-field persona and then physical traits of Mad Max Hairston and Devin Witherspoon. Your initial reaction, sir?
So
look how he's laughing at me, producer Sharon.
No, I'm just laughing because you're just making sure that you're going to fall somewhere in the middle with your comp. So
I did myself a disservice by going with someone who's 5'8.5" because both Max and Devin were 5'10", but they were both in the 180s and they both ran really well. Now I don't know if D'Angelo's going to be a 4.28 guy like Mad Max was last year, but you're right. I'm hedging. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I like the Witherspoon comp a little bit more than the Max Hairston because I think the although their weights are similar, I think when you look at D'Angelo Pons' body structure, he gives you a little bit more like sturdiness to him than Max did. And he's kind of more built structurally to Devon Witherspoon. They're both extremely competitive, extremely physical. And so I like that comp a little bit more than the Max Hairston one.
All right. Well, you didn't hate it, so that's a good start.
But
I'll ask you this about.
I mean, let me ask you this because I hadn't seen any of your comps. Are you giving me 2 for everybody just to make sure
I think just
somewhere in there?
I think just one more. I doubled up just to cover my bases. Before I ask the next question, I also went back and looked of guys who were 5'8" or north of that were first, second, third round picks. Ty Hill was 5'10", so again, he's in the same conversation as Max and Witherspoon. Antoine Winfield was 5'9", 176, but he's a safety. And Sinquest Golson, going way back to 10, plus years ago out of Ole Miss, was 5'9", 176, drafted by the Steelers in round 3, I believe, but he never got on the field because he was banged up, unfortunately for him. So it's not a long track record of guys who are that size and have immediate success or any success outside of Antoine Winfield. Let me ask you about this in terms of D'Angelo. Played primarily outside last year at Indiana. Do you have to play him inside, or can you wait and see how he handles going up against 6'3" wide receivers?
Well, I think no matter what, I think you cross-train him to play inside.
Okay.
Just because obviously the more you can do, the better off. But to me, everyone thinks just because someone is smaller, you kick them inside. Well, playing inside, a lot of action happens really quick, and you have to be tough enough and willing to be the run supporter, because essentially the nickel is the third linebacker. And so you got to have that toughness, that that grit, or as B-Max say, you got to eat pencils to be that C-gap run defender. And so if those guys don't have that mentality, it doesn't matter that you're small, you just can't play in there. So I think it's more of it's less of, size factors in, but the other key part that you want to put in there is toughness and grit.
Witherspoon was a top 5 pick, I believe. Max went to the bottom of the first round last year. I don't think D'Angelo sneaks into the first round. If he were 6 feet, he'd be a first-round pick all day long. But are you taking him? How long into day 2 are you waiting to take him?
Well, honestly, it depends on how the runner corners go. And with this trade that we talked about at the top of the show, that kind of shakes things up a little bit, just in terms of where the first corner is going to go. So it could be somewhere in mid to late day 2. But I agree with you. I don't see it happening day 1.
Yeah, I have him as a mid-second round pick right now among all the cornerbacks. But it also depends, and you've talked about this a lot, depends on what scheme you're running and what you need. I mean, he could be a top 20 player, but if there's no need for, if you need a guy who's 6'2" to play the boundary, that's another conversation and will affect your draft board for certain. All right, Producer Sharon, let's take a quick break here since we've got a few extra minutes here because we're going to come back and continue our conversation about these comps. Let me know in the comments who won round 1. And your answer should start with the 4 letters RYAN. And then when we come back, I'm looking at what's going to talk about next. This is going to get Rand going. I have a safety I want to talk about, Rand. And if you like this comp, I will be blown away. So let's call that a tease. Let's take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll talk about my guy, Dillon Thieneman, right after this. Welcome back to With the First Pick. We're doing some intriguing players that we like in this draft class and their comps for them. By my unofficial count, I won the first round. I haven't checked the comments yet, but I'm assuming that I cruised to an easy victory. Like the NCAA tournament, you're the 16 seed. You're the play-in right here, Rand. Let's see if you can bounce back and win the 8-9 matchup. Let's go with your guy, and you've been talking up this young man, Alabama wide receiver Germie Bernard, for quite some time here. And I actually like this comp a lot. You're pretty good at your job. Who do you compare Germie Bernard's game to?
You mentioned it. We've talked about him a lot on the pod, and just the one of the top honors you can give a player is just saying that they are just a good football player, right? To me, that just kind of resonates. He can do everything. He can play outside. He can play in the slot. He's tough. He can enter the box and mix it up with defensive ends and linebackers. You can give him the ball on some fly sweeps and let him carry the ball. But my comp for him was Chris Godwin. And I don't think Chris Godwin gets enough love and credit for what he brings to that Tampa Bay Bucs offense. I think if you talk to people inside, obviously Mike Evans is Mike Evans, but if you talk to people inside that organization, they will tell you that their offense is firing on all cylinders when Chris Godwin is in there. And just for measurement sakes, because I'm always give you these measurements when I'm giving you my comps, because not only do the play styles match, but their measurables match. So Chris Godwin was 6'1", 209 and ran 4.42 when he came out. And Germie Bernard was 6'1", 206 and ran 4.48 at the combine. So very similar guys in terms of style of play, very similar in terms of measurables as well.
And it feels like, as we sit here 50-something days from the draft, they're going to be very similar in terms of where they're drafted, because Godwin was a third-round pick, the 84th overall, And that feels about the range. I would be surprised if Bernard fell into day 3 because of the versatility he provides. He's not the most electric wide receiver, but this is what we talked about in the fall with Ty Simpson before he got injured. He's exactly where Ty expected him to be on every route run, and that's valuable at the next level.
Hey, man, like I said, and for those who are just now tuning in, when you go back and you listen to or watch my first comp compared to Ryan's, it's not close. So I will continue that trend in this round as well. So thank you for coming. God bless you. Good night.
This is going to be one of them situations with my next comp where the bottom's about to fall out because I'm taking a risk here. I'm walking without a wire on the tightrope here, and I could fall into the Grand Canyon with this next one. So Dillon Thieneman, your guy, and I came around on him a little later than you did. And let's start here. Let me butter you up. You talked to Dillon, and you were completely and wholly impressed with him as a person, set aside for how good a football player he is, correct?
Yeah, man, he's a great dude. As soon as, even when we saw him at Combine, as soon as we made eye contact, his face lit up, big smile on his face. He's just a pro's pro already, goes about his business the right way. And I even texted him after he ran that 40 and texted him the big eyes emoji because I didn't see that coming. You know what I mean? So more so just like, hey, man, hell of a job. Super proud of the way you perform.
All right, here we go. Let's. I'm trying to push this off as far as possible. So Dillon's measurables: he was 6 feet 1/8, 201 pounds, ran the 4.35, had a 41-inch vert. My comp for him, Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Man, I love it.
Are you serious?
No.
Good actor. So look, before you answer, let me give you Minkah's comps. He was 6 feet and a quarter, 204 pounds, ran a 4.46, so he would have gotten dusted in that 40 time. And part of my reason is this. Obviously, Minkah played cornerback. That's not Dillon's game. But the versatility, the athleticism, the ability to move all over the field, the sideline to sideline juice, and the speed. And that speed showed up. The 4.35 didn't show up on tape, but he's plenty fast. But that was an Oscar-winning performance. I felt good for about two seconds, so I appreciate you at least giving.
No. First of all, I was just giving you a hard time because I had to. I couldn't let you really feel good about anything, but I don't hate it. I don't love it either. I can see where you drew, the comparison, but it's hard for me to get out of my mind like the level in which Minkah played coming out. Right. He was the do everything at Alabama. He was like the linchpin probably for the entire team in the way he played. And he was probably about as sure thing as there had been in recent time when he came out. And I think Dillon, him playing in that defense, he was the calming force for this Oregon defense. And really, you forget that it was his first year at Oregon, learning a new way, learning how to play in that secondary with other great players around him. But he was that calming force for that secondary, made plays when he needed to. And I think he's gonna be a productive NFL pro. But don't love it, don't hate it. Just kind of in the middle for me.
Hey, man, that's a win for Wilson. That's all I'm going to say. So Minkah went 11th overall in 2017. I'm not going to say never, but I don't think Dillon's going to go that high. But, and we've talked about this, I think you agree, obviously Caleb Downs is safety 1. I think we both agree that Emmanuel McNeil-Warren out of Toledo is safety 2 for us, and then Dillon is safety 3. Do we see 3 safeties go in the first round?
No, I don't think we see 3 safeties. I think there's still some conversation for E-Man to kind of go in the bottom of 1, depending on. And I've spoke to some secondary coaches prior to the workout and told them like you're gonna like both of these guys if you hadn't watched them, particularly teams that had late playoff runs. And so they're still they're working through free agency. They still haven't gotten their full draft list yet, but. I know I'm gonna be circling back with those guys over the coming weeks to kind of see where they see both of these 2 young men. But I think where Caleb Downs goes, and let's see if Caleb gets outside of the top 10, that's going to really push everyone down a little bit. And so you could see maybe 1 more, no matter if you like Dillon more or you like E-Man in that low, let's call it the bottom third of the first round, and then there'll be probably an early run on safeties in the top half of the second.
So as I look at the draft order right now, and obviously understanding that free agency is yet to happen, the Eagles at 23, Reed Blankenship's contract's up, so they could be a possibility. The Bears at 25, the Bills at 26. And then you have the New England Patriots at 31 actually do have needs at safety. Jalen Hawkins is a free agent. They have other needs, of course. And then the Seahawks at 32. Kobe Bryant and Julian Love, I believe, are both free agents in the secondary, and Tariq Woolen as well. So those could be potential landing spots. Other needs could be addressed, of course. But I'm just excited that I got a middle-of-the-road grade on Dillon Thieneman, who, if he turns into Minkah Fitzpatrick, that's a steal. But I wasn't going to give him a sorry comp at this point. I'm excited with the way he ran. And that 4.35 is legit, though. Like, you mentioned the eyes emoji. He doesn't play that fast, but it certainly makes the evaluation a little easier, right?
Yeah, and low key, man, I'm gonna go somewhere here. I don't know if it's even PC to say, so I'm just gonna say it. A lot of times in the scouting community, we struggle with the cross-racial comparisons. You know what I mean? And so you hit us with a cross-racial comparison. So I gotta give you an uptick, in your grade on that one. So you hit us with the cross-racial comparison. I like it. And plus, like I said, Dillon, I like Dillon. Got a ton of respect for the kid. So yeah, I give you a little uptick. We'll put you a little bit above the line now.
I appreciate that. And I did give that consideration. And our buddy Rick Spielman used to give me a hard time. He says it's a layup when you try to just comp white players to white players. Be a little creative and give them the benefit of the doubt as football players. So with the first pick, we don't see color. We just see good football players. And Dillon Thieneman, you remind Minkah Fitzpatrick. I'm a huge Minkah fan, so that's a win for everybody. All right, let's take a quick break here, producer Sharon. When we come back, we're going to talk about a wide receiver that I was hoping to see more from. And I want to get Rand's reaction to this A-plus comp. And this is the one that I have two comps for one player, Rand. So brace yourself,
of course,
in the break, because we're going to talk about Notre Dame wide receiver Malachi Fields, and we'll get Rand's comp as well right after this. All right, Rand, let's continue our conversation about some of these intriguing players in this draft class and our favorite comps for them. You are up with Duke cornerback Chandler Rivers. We talked earlier about D'Angelo Pons. He's another quote-unquote undersized corner who has an edge to him, and he plays outside primarily with some inside capability. What are you thinking for Chandler Rivers?
So you mentioned a smaller guy, slighter frame, but he's tough. He's physical. He's aggressive by nature. And just, one of those smaller guys that doesn't think he's small. He thinks he's a bigger man than he plays. But my comp for him was Amik Robinson, corner that I think he went to La Tech, I want to believe, coming out of college. Spent some time with the Raiders, currently with the Lions. And at that same size, people automatically casted him to play inside, but he's played outside. He's played a ton outside for the Lions because of all the injuries that they have, but he also kicks inside. And for, again, measurable sake, Chandler Rivers was 5'9 and a half, 185. Arm length was 29 3/8, 9.5 hand, went 4.40 in the 40. And then Amik Robinson was 5'8. He was 187, 30 and a quarter arm length, 9 hand, and he ran a 4.45. So again, play style matches up as well as measurables.
Chandler Rivers was, you are killing me. That's a good one. He was my number one corner in the summer before we got the verifieds. He had a really good season. Does he sneak into day two, you think?
I think there's gonna be a fight for him to get in there. Again, that run on corners. When is it going to happen, and how is that going to push him up? Because I liked him a lot too coming into the year. And if I'm not mistaken, when Amik came out, and we could have producer Sharon look it up, or you could look it up as we're going. But I believe Amik Robinson was a 4th round pick out of La Tech, if my memory serves me correctly. But again, if there was a redraft, I'm sure he would go a little bit higher because he's found a home and a calling in the league.
It's like you've done this before. 4th round pick in 2020, 139th overall out of La Tech. There you go. Just trying to pad your grades. All right, my guy. a little different size. Malachi Fields, a wide receiver out of Notre Dame, 6'4.5", 218, 32-inch arms, ran a 4.61. And this isn't my comp, but I just want to let you know that the only wide receivers drafted in the first round in the last 20 years, that size, who ran 4.61, are Kelvin Benjamin and Michael Clayton. And I don't think we would say that they were set the world on fire once they got to the league, and that, for whatever reason. But my comp, I'm going 2 for 1 here because that's how Wilson does it. Juwan Jennings coming out of college, and then Nico Collins. And Nico Collins coming out of college was not the Nico Collins we saw today. He made huge, vast strides coming out of Michigan once he got to Houston. So go ahead and give me the A+, and we can move on.
No, because you missed me with the JJ comparison. And the reason why I'll say from the Juwan Jennings standpoint, Juwan Jennings was a tough, physical wide receiver coming out, and because we drafted him in San Francisco in the 7th round, and we always felt like his primary place would be in the slot. And I believe, you said Malachi ran 4.6. I would, Aaron, JJ will probably text me here in a minute if he hears this or sees this, but I want to say JJ was probably 4.7.
4.7 too.
So,
I had to balance that out with the 4.45 from Nico. That's why I added Nico.
And I would say, like, just watching the film, Malachi Fields didn't feel like a 4.6 guy to me on film.
Faster or slower?
I thought he would be faster. And I'm going to pull up my report as we speak because I had a different comp. Let me see.
And Malachi had a really good Senior Bowl as well, and there was some buzz coming out of Mobile that maybe he'd move up draft boards, and I always thought he was going to be a mid to late day 2 guy even before we got to Mobile, and then he ran the 4.61. The tape is still the tape, but this is just one more data point that we have to track.
Yeah, and I got to I'm looking at my report for him now through my notes.
Producer Sharon called you a boomer as you're looking through your notes like grandpa trying to find his glasses.
No, because honestly, like when I saw him playing at Notre Dame, it looked DK-ish coming out.
DK Metcalf.
Yeah, but I thought he had more. I thought he had more of a route tree than DK, but DK had something that clearly this guy doesn't have, and that's just that overall explosive power, that explosive nature and speed that Malachi doesn't have. But just watching him move on the football field, I was like, oh, this guy can big body DBs like DK. And I thought he would be a little bit bigger than 218. I thought he would be in that 225, 222 to 225 range.
All right, so you like him a little bit more than me. Don't love the comp. That's okay. We'll circle back to that. We have plenty of time. Next up, though, a young man that somehow improved athletically than what we saw on tape at the Combine. Your next comp, Sonny Styles. And by the way, we were talking about this. Sonny got his nickname Sonny because of Sonny Corleone, because he was a hothead growing up and his dad gave him that name. We were talking about this yesterday. His nickname should have been Furious Styles. They missed a layup on that one.
Yeah, they did. Or maybe that's what his brother Lorenzo's name should have been, was Furious Styles. But for those that don't know, Furious Styles is a reference to Boys in the Hood, the movie Boys in the Hood. Lawrence Fishburne's character was Furious Styles. But Sonny Styles, man, he was probably the star of the Combine. And probably if there's anybody that made themselves a ton of money just based off of the Combine, it was Sonny Styles. So, you see it there on the screen. His measurements, 6'5", 244 pounds, 4.46, a 43.5-inch vert, 32 7/8 arm, 10 hand, 11.2 broad jump. He just lit it on fire. And so you talk about a guy that moved from safety down to linebacker, and as crazy as it sounds, he's still learning how to play linebacker, right? He was the green dot for 2 years. His first year, he wasn't comfortable doing it, started settling into the role in year 2. So there's still growth for him there. The only person to comp him to playing the same position would be Tremaine Edmonds, right? Another guy, Tremaine Edmonds, coming out. He was 6'4.5". He was 253. As crazy as this is, his arm length was 34.5 was his arm length. And then his 40 was a 4.54. And you put it in the mock draft the other day. You had Sonny Styles mocked to the Tennessee Titans. And I can tell you, because I was there, Tremaine Edmonds was a favorite of Robert Saleh coming out, especially being that Mike linebacker. That he needs to affect those throwing windows, to carry that deep crosser route that he calls the special. Being able to have a linebacker that can turn and run with that deep crosser, again, a 4.46 guy in Sonny Styles, a 4.54 in Tremaine Edmonds. To me, that is the comp right there, because you don't really have very many, guys that play to that style. And you have two big men that can play laterally, that can do it all. Now, I will say, because the 49ers, we had the 9th pick that year. And so there was some fight for Tremaine Edmonds. There was some fight for Derwin James in the room. And we ended up drafting Mike McGlinchey, and our consolation prize at linebacker in the 3rd round was Fred Warner. So
you guys are living right.
Everything worked out the way it was supposed to, but Sonny Styles, Tremaine Edmonds, that's my comp.
And, to your point, Fred's not a bad consolation prize because they're similar styles, but you've talked about this a ton of times. You just didn't know what you were getting in Fred because he played so much slot apex when he was at BYU. You didn't know what he was going to be able to do in the middle of the field. Turns out he could handle it. All right, my guy here before we take a break, Ty Simpson. And we spent the first half of the fall talking up Ty Simpson when he was healthy. And this is a layup comp. I'm not really stretching my muscles out too much. Souped up version of Mac Jones. He's somehow an inch shorter. He's 6'1". Mac was 6'2", almost 6'3". 211 versus 212. But I think he's more athletic, maybe a slightly better arm, but he throws with anticipation. And he's, better in space. The issue was just getting banged up. I mean, maybe there's no one tougher than Mac Jones because we see him getting hit in the mouth every single week, whether in San Francisco or Jacksonville or New England before that, and just getting right back up. But that is my comp. You have a look on your face that says you may not love it.
No, I don't mind it at all. I was going to do in my head, I was working through a Pete Prisco impersonation.
Oh boy!
With the low-hanging fruit.
You're a good impersonator.
So this will be a Pete Prisco low-hanging fruit. If you go back and you look at it, and you look at Alabama, they have two positions where it just looks and feel like Alabama. It's quarterback and linebacker. Right? They just have guys. If you go back and you look at all the Alabama linebackers, they pretty much all fit a profile and all look the same. And then for the most part, all Alabama quarterbacks look and play the same brand of football. And so you just, as Pete would do with running backs, you just take off the shelf and just put in, take off the shelf, put in. So you can do that with Ty Simpson. And by the way, Ty Simpson was a cool guy to meet. When we interviewed him at the combine, and you could just feel some of that fire in his belly that he has, and just his want to show everybody that he's a baller and he can play.
Yep, he's healthy now. His dad's a coach, so he's got that in him as well. And to quote Todd Bowles, in response to your impersonation of Tom Moore, for your impersonation of Pete Prisco, that was outstanding. All right, let's take another quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to get to our last two comps. And I'll give you a little peek, Rand. I'm going to give you my comp for Keldric Faulk, and this is legit going to be a grand slam. I promise you. Okay, we'll talk about that right after this. All right, Rand, let's wrap this thing up. We got two more comps to get to. I will admit you've done a pretty good job with this exercise. I've been hit or miss. I'm all over the place. I'm like a 16-year-old learning to drive in the parking lot out there at Walmart. I ran into a few light poles, but I'm getting better. I understand where the accelerator and the brake are. You have next up the first person we talked to last week at the Combine, Harold Perkins Jr. out of LSU. And the question is, where do you play him? And that sort of informs your comp.
Yeah, Perk, man. Perk's a good kid. Met him a couple years ago. Met him at a pro day when he was a young fella, and then met him again right after he tore his ACL. But a kid that you root for. But like you said, man, like, where do you play him? He's played on the edge. He's played off ball. He's even played deep at safety in the secondary and nickel. Kind of like my comp for him, another LSU linebacker, Quan Alexander. And if you remember Quan coming out, Quan was like a Sam linebacker, played with his hand in the dirt, played some defensive end, and obviously found a home in the National Football League as an off-ball linebacker with before he started bouncing around and suffered a major knee injury. He was with the Bucs, signed a free agent deal with the 49ers. But again, I'm gonna hit you with the measurables. Perkins, because he didn't run. He didn't run at the combine, but he was 6'1", he was 223, and his arm length was 31 3/8. And then Quan coming out was 6'1", 227, 30 and a quarter arm. And Quan ended up running 4.55. I do think Perk will run, much faster, but two really good football players that you have to, find a home for. But I think once you find a home for them, you got a really good football player. So, a LSU to LSU comp to match your Ty Simpson, Alabama to Alabama comp. But I think, again, when you look at their play styles, the way they play the game, and then you look at their measurables, it all aligns.
It feels like Perkins is going to be a day 3 guy just because of the uncertainty of the position. Any chance you think he sneaks into round 3?
If you have a home for him, and again, I hadn't talked to enough evaluators to see where they have him. I'm pretty sure everybody has him at linebacker on their board. But if you're taking those guys in that top 3 rounds, you typically want to walk away with a starter. And again, like, where do you play him? If I'm not mistaken, again, I believe Quan Alexander was a 4th-round pick coming out, and obviously he became a starter. And I don't know, I think maybe he may have made a Pro Bowl, maybe, but I want to say Quan was a 4th-round pick coming out, which, like you said, if you feel the same way, you said that Perkins feels like a day 3 pick, which would typically be a 4th-round pick. And I could definitely see him going in the 4th.
4th-round pick out of LSU, as you mentioned, 2015 Pro Bowler in 2017. And just to confirm, strong safety is not in Harold Perkins Jr.'s future. That sort of tweener role, right?
Nah, I see him more as that off-ball linebacker, big nickel-ish, on base down. So I see him in just a hybrid role.
All right, let's go. This is the moment you've been waiting for. And I'm just saying that in the hopes that you're kind to me. Keldric Faulk, we talked to him, 21-year-old Keldric Faulk, it turns out. Great young man, fantastic football player, just scratching the surface. 6'5" and 7/8, 276 pounds, 34 3/8-inch arms. My comp, producer Sharon, this is the Florida Gator, Carlos Dunlap.
Let me think my way through. No. Let me think my way. So
let me give you the measurables for Carlos at the combine. 6'6", 278, 34 5/8-inch arms. He ran a 4.68. We haven't seen Keldric run yet. 35-inch vert for Keldric, and the vertical for Carlos was 31.5. So there you go.
Yeah. So I will say, all jokes aside, it's not a bad comp. I think the difference for me. I think Carlos was a much better pass rusher coming out. And I think right. Keldric is a better run defender. And not that I don't think Carlos couldn't play the run. I just think he wanted to rush the passer. But I think if you're looking at body types, very similar. Now, Carlos Dunlap was a hell of an athlete coming out of high school. He actually returned kicks coming out of high school and actually took a couple to the house. In his day, and if my memory serves me correct, he played opposite of Robert Quinn in high school. So good luck to those high school tackles having to block those two.
Yeah. So Dunlap, as I'm looking at, was born in North Charleston, South Carolina, and I think that's where he played high school ball. So yeah, that's a scary proposition. All right. Well, give me an overall grade for all my comps.
Oh. I give you a B-.
Okay. If you're
probably the highest grade you've ever received in school, that wasn't a PE course.
Even still, there were some struggles to get that B- and BE. If you're watching us on the YouTube machine, let me know, give me my grade. Let me know if it's a B- or better. And you can be as honest as you want to be because you're always honest on them YouTube comments. Rand, I will give you an A because I'm a fair grader and I respect your evaluation skills. So I'm not mad at you, and I do feel bad you got to wear that Gators. You're obligated to wear that Gators jersey in public. So I was trying to help you out with a good grade there. He has nothing to say.
I actually took my wife to lunch before the show, and they asked me, "Are the Gators going to be any good?" I was like, "They damn well better be."
All right. Well, as I think Mike Tyson once said, hope ain't a plan. But with the first pick, you can check us out wherever you get your podcast, scan that Euro code, and we will see you guys in the next one.